The computer sharing of information, the assistant. How do we share information? Currently our technology can't really share information. My last video went into all the basic reasons why we can't share any kind of information, digital or otherwise, on the computer. So this is a kind of a guide on how we can change that. So if I look at library science, this is just an example. The 3x5 card was a good example of sharing information. It is one of the best techniques for information access along with street addresses. So the library card, on this one little card, it had where the book was, okay, which is our piece of information that we're interested in, and then the details about what we would find there. It told you the number of pages in the book. It told you if it was illustrated or not. It gave you the authors, the title, the subjects. It gave you the publisher, the date it was copyrighted, and subgroups of where we put the book within the place on the shelf. And then it had the book size, and basically with that information, it was a start. It gave you everything you need to know, at least to go if you were interested. And that's key here is that, you know, when I think elephant, I don't pull up every piece of little pieces of information about that term or any term. I only put it in context of if I'm talking about the leg or something, or the trunk, or where I've seen them, or have I ever ridden one, and all that knowledge is available, but I don't need to pull it all up. Street addresses are another excellent location scheme. You know, you can get to every house on the planet, every apartment, every business, all post office boxes, and so it's a great locator for information. And it tells you a lot. Tells you what states it's in, what city, what street, you know, what number on the street. So it's a very good location indicator. So it's a good piece of information. And that's true knowledge, useful information to be able to perform a particular task. Find a book, find the house, deliver mail, go home, find somebody else's address, and so on. Now our digital information, which is really the computer information, is unfortunately we've lost most of our values. We have a name and a value, and sometimes we're given how it was originally stored. So in sharing information, we need all the information that will give me use of the value. And my last talk is basically age is 12. 12 what? We don't have units. Any value that we have digitally is only valid for one version of one application, which means that we can't share it because they have to have that same application and that same version to be able to do it. So we're really not sharing, we're accessing that through the same program. Sharing means allowing other uses for that information. You know, I have a hammer, I drive a nail. I may want to bust up concrete. I can lend it to you and you can do whatever you want to with it. And that's the point. We need to be able to share information in a way that is useful to every individual. Right now it's only all of our digital information is only useful for that one application. So in reality we can't share any information, but we would like to. And we want all information shareable, which means all disk file information, everything stored in a file or some storage media. We'd like to share that information, to know what's in it, to actually have the capability to use it, which is sharing. We want all hardware device, raw data, control information, logic. Logic is information. How you do something, it's a recipe, right? So, half cup milk, it's information. And all documents. So all of our online books, PDFs, Word documents, and a billion other scripting languages, all of our compiler programs, languages, assemblers, DOS, JCL, billions of pieces of information we'd like to share, but we can't. Okay, DOS only works in, as a batch file. JCL only works on IBM, and so on and so on. So, but what we'd like is also access to all values in memory, anywhere, in any application, and be able to share that information. So that's true sharing. So we're looking at my application, even within my own application, we need to be able to share all the structures, all the values, anywhere in that application. Right now we don't. We kind of group it into little functions or classes, if you will. To me, they're all the same. Basically, we have a data structure and we associate functions that can work on it. So call it a class or whatever you want to call it. To me, it's just a function. So now that we know what we want to share, how do we do that? So what I'm doing is, yesterday when I did or day before when I did my video, I started to think that I gave the example of a baker wants to cook a pineapple upside down cake. His assistant would go out and his job would be to go gather all the ingredients and utensils necessary for the chef to do that. That's what we need to do in our software. So we need to be able to have somebody else access all the ingredients and not just have the chef force him to do all of this, which is, in my real make-up world here, it's the application. The application should not need to go get anything. He has an assistant, and that's what we want to move toward. I want to change it from compiler to assistant. The assistant simply says, the baker says, I want to bake a cake. Or a plumber says, I'm going to install a sewer system. We're just telling the system, the assistant, our computer assistant, what we want done, what we're going to do. And then the assistant does exactly what he can do. What is his responsibilities? And that we pretty much know. We know what the computer can do. It can get to every file on the system. It can literally know every structure of every system of executables. What's the file structure of a font file and AutoCAD files and all these other files that we're creating. And so we move toward that. Once we can share this information with ourselves without work, because the assistant knows what structure. When I said, I say here's, time and date is stored this way, the assistant already knows that, our computer system. So we have chemist designing a new polymer. The assistant would know polymers and the relative information that needs to be done. So Texas may go on a new school management system. The assistant would know, we already know that he's going to need all the counties, all the school districts within a county, all the controlling environments within the system, all the state laws and county laws and city laws that apply to each of these environments. We know students, teachers, guest speakers, field trips. These words are not unknown to us. We don't need artificial intelligence to tell us that these words are important or that we need structures and logic to be applied to them. Find all the students in this county or in this school district. We have that information. And that's shareability of our graphic systems, of our registrations of all of our students. Where'd they say they lived? So all we're doing is accessing the information. The logic isn't hard. And what we want to do is the assistant doesn't have to learn no matter who asks him, because it's one assistant, not billions of assistants. It's one assistant for each user. So each user says, well, even though Bob's over there in that other county, we voted to allow him to go to that high school because of his special needs or whatever it is. And so each individual really needs his own unique context for every piece of information that's being shared. Okay, so we have a teacher, say, wants to create a quiz for his third grade class, spelling quiz. We know words there, again, we're sharing the words that a third grader needs to learn. And the teacher may say, well, from the last class, she'd be able to pick out the more difficult or the easier ones or whatever. So you see, it's really the teacher doing her job, not becoming a programmer, not having to learn how to count characters. That's all I did for the first 20 years of my software development. We counted characters, parsed out stuff. We can get rid of that. Okay? Now programmers. So a programmer wants to create a new operating system. Assistant, create me an operating system to run this one program multiple times by multiple environments or whatever it is. So what we're doing is the cook or whoever's in control or the master, if you will, or the master, I don't know what you want to call him, but he's telling the assistant what he's qualifying it. I'm going to do an pineapple upside down cake, but I'm going to do a 12-inch this time, not a 14, or which is really what we're asking the computer to do: qualify our information. India says they want to fly all airplanes automatically. So we need a system. I think in the future, if we start getting flying cars and things, they all need to be GPS controlled, self-flying, put it that way. So we don't want accidents. We want everything completely safe and absolutely secure. We may go to quantum navigation, which is most likely, that's where the movement of the plane would know exactly where it's at. Navy ships have them now. They don't use GPS. They can use quantum navigation, but it's too big right now. But anyway, so these are the things. Our whole system right now is designed not to be shared. Basically, it's hard coded in one application. Okay, what is that value? What's its purpose? How big can it be? When can it be changed? Who can change it? When was it last changed? All this basic knowledge really needs to be in the computer, in the assistant. The master or whoever the user doesn't need to know this information unless it's part of his job. Do I need to know when the baking materials came in? No. But it might be, in this case, he didn't have enough cinnamon. He says, when's the next shipment? So it's just simply more sharing of information and there's hardly any logic here. And the systems I'm building which is Jane, but I think I'm going to change it to just the assistant, because I like the concept, but we're not right. All the AI stuff I've seen, I don't really deal with it. It's not my area that I really care for. It's telling you, the human, what to do. I don't want to do anything. Somebody said, well, this is how you can read from the USB or something. And it said, well, you can go here and you can do this. Don't tell me what to do. You're the assistant. You should just do it for me. And if you can't do it, then yes. Part of that would be, say, look, I don't have enough flowers. Master, you're going to have to go to the store, because if you want this today, it's going to take 3 days if we order it. So it's a two-way street. But so our whole system, the whole thing here is all of our applications they're not designed to share information, period. A lot of it's intentional. Every commercial product I know will not share their own information, the information, the knowledge you have. But I want to get it so there are no borders, that all information is shareable, that all logic is shareable. So you'll be able to, so the logic itself is available and shareable. Because without that, you can't validate. If you're a bank, you really need to know what logic is being applied. Or if you're a chemist, you need to be able to make sure, I don't trust it, I want to validate how it was actually done. Right now, we can't do that. So what we need validation. We need security. We need absolute security. And we need absolute validation and credibility, of where our information came from. I know a friend of mine was doing, I think Nevada's U.S. Census and Oracle Spatial database, and their state plane projection algorithms were wrong. Basically, Oracle had somehow mistyped one of the parameters of the state plane coordinate system. And it took him probably, I don't know, it took him a long time to fix that. Basically, because we hardly validate our own information. We assume that we assume a lot right now. So that's my issue with all this. Anyway, our whole technology today is not shareable. You can't move word and just use it anywhere. You can't, even our own internal programs, our compilers don't share the source code. You can't get to the source code from your own, from the compiler standpoint, which would be nice, or all the internal structures. I'd like to see the instructions that you're generating and billions of other pieces of information. The OCR, character recognition software, I was thinking about it today, it has like 3 or 4 steps. Okay, it has 3 or 4 processes. So which, at least in my mind, the first thing I would want to do is get the image black and white. So you take everything that you can, all your colored pages, things like that, and the marks, you want to eliminate all of those if you can. And then rectify, so that's one phase. The next phase would be to rectify the image so everything's along the X and Y. And that would be taking each character or something and adjusting it so that it's easier to recognize. And then finally, the recognition part, which becomes a lot easier. But it's simply three separate actual pieces of logic that have nothing to do with character recognition. Okay? I mean, the first 2. But that same logic is useful in probably 100,000 other applications. So we're not duplicating any logic here. So that's why the assistant can pull out and use any module she wants. Okay? So we can't use our current information if we go to a system that's designed to be shared and have the information that, like units. We need a system that has units. We need a system that you can qualify and define all of our information with the value. So that when I say age is 12, age needs to know, well, what is it? It's the year derived from the birth date to the death date, or from the birth date to the current date, depending on which one is less. Now, you know how to calculate age. I'm just trying to give you a point of knowledge. We need to know the assistant needs to know, okay, when something's valid and when something's not valid. And when it was changed last, it needs to know everything that we know. We need to get all this stupid information out of our source code because it does us no good there. We need to get it into the knowledge base. We need to have that information available so that there is no question to the assistant. He can answer these types of questions when asked. Okay, is this, you said that he was 212 years old. I don't believe you. And right now, age is just arbitrary. I mean, we can't even tell what year it is anymore because of our leap seconds. So the point here is I'm trying to say, in my last few videos, I try to tell you what the problems are. Here I'm trying to tell you the solution. Trying to tell you that we need to fundamentally change our technology. Well, thank you very much. Have a great one. Bye now.